Hey everyone, Chris here, and in this video I'm going to talk about whether we are overdiagnosing neurodivergence. Now if you want a really quick answer, the answer is no, but we will get into this video about why we're actually underdiagnosing neurodivergence, but we're also going to talk about why neurodivergence might be on the rise. So what does the evidence say? Well, almost all clinicians agree that we are still currently underdiagnosing. And we're doing this we can see this from late identified adults, we can see this in minority groups, in women. We didn't think women could be autistic, or it was debated, or it said they were a minority rather than an important part of the autistic community. And we now know that people have just been masking, and that masking has been leading to burnout, to chronic conditions. And so there's a whole coherent theory about why we've been missing all of these people and what the consequences has been for them. Now, one of the issues is that standardized tools like the ADOS tend to miss a lot of this. And what we can see is there's a big discrepancy in the diagnostic rates from an ADOS to community psychologists. Now, you might just say, well, community psychologists are being too generous and they are overdiagnosing. But what we know is that the ADOS and community psychologists diagnose traditional presentations of autism quite accurately. So young white boys tend to be picked up on a similar rates, whereas what community psychologists are seeing that tools like the ADOS are missing is those other presentations. So in adults, in women especially, the tool is just not picking up all of these. So it's not just that the tool has a lower threshold or a higher threshold, depending on what way you want to look at it. It's that the tool is systematically biased in ways that we understand. And as autistic and ADHD theory has evolved, we now understand the greater range of presentations, but the tools haven't been updated to match that yet. Another issue that I see a lot in my work is that often, especially women, have been misdiagnosed. So they've been given something like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, emotionally unstable personality disorder. And so they've been missed because the psychiatrist thought it was something else, but it was actually just that we didn't fully understand how autism presents in women. There's also the issue that until 10-15 years ago, you couldn't be both autistic and ADHD. So you might have even been through an assessment 10 years ago and you were ADHD, but you couldn't be given both of those labels because the medical textbooks didn't allow it. So again, there are systematic ways in which neurodivergence is being missed that we're now correcting for, and that's one of the big reasons why rates are increasing. But there's another important theoretical reason that we need to consider here, which is perhaps neurodivergence is rising. And to do that, we need to look at a work of philosophy, specifically One-Dimensional Man by Herbert Marcuse. Now, if you haven't read this book, I don't blame you. It is a tough philosophical text, but the first couple of chapters are very enlightening. So if we think about when we were farmers back in an agrarian society, it might have been quite good to be autistic, right? Because you get to sit on a tractor for 8 hours a day. You don't have to talk to humans. You just talk to animals. And you can eat the same sandwich for lunch every day. Very comfortable life for many of us autistic people. But as industrialized society develops, society requires more and more conformity. So if we think about clothing, for example, it used to be the case when all garments were handmade, didn't matter too much what body shape you had because your clothes would be made for your body. But as we created industrialized society and started economies of scale, started mass producing things in factories, everything had to start coming out in a standard size. Now, if you're a man, you need to be a small, a medium, or a large. And if you have a really skinny body type, if you have a larger body type, or if you have a body type that just doesn't fit those standard sizes, you probably find it really, really difficult to get clothes that fit you, because in a highly industrialized society, everything needs to fit into the standard. Now there's a standard body, and we're expected to make our bodies conform to that because that's what the factories are producing. Now the same thing Marcuse argues is happening with our minds. We now need a standardized mind. And if we think about what our education system is doing, it's typically preparing us for a workplace where we're going to sit at a desk, typically using a computer for 8-10 hours a day. Now, that means that highly industrialized society needs a very specific brain, right? So historically, it might have been okay to have all of these different brains, but in highly industrialized society, we need a very specific brain that can sit here, type at a keyboard for 8 hours a day. Now, that's a real problem, because if we think about everyone's part of neurodiversity, but some people fit in well with social standards and they're neurotypicals, and some people find it really difficult to conform to social norms, and they're neurodivergent people. Now, if we think if what society requires of us keeps getting a more narrow and narrow definition, that means that more and more people are going to find themselves outside of that circle of what society needs. So it's not that human brains are changing, we have the same range of neurodiversity that we've always had, but as society puts more and more unreasonable constraints on this, more of us are going to find ourselves outside of the range of neurotypical, because what's considered neurotypical keeps getting tighter and tighter as society places more and more demands on us. And therefore, more people find themselves struggling, and more people are likely to be classified as neurodivergent. So in conclusion, we are absolutely not overdiagnosing neurodivergent. We are still underdiagnosing it. We're still picking up on all of the people that weren't allowed 2 labels. We're still picking up on all of the women who we didn't think could be autistic, but now we know better. We're still looking at all the different types of autism presentations and how people might have been missed. And as we catch up, rates are going to continue to increase for neurodivergence. But it's also worth considering that as society requires more and more of us, more sitting down at a desk with a very specific kind of brain doing a specific kind of work, that means that fewer and fewer people are going to have that type of brain. And it's not that human brains are changing, but society makes ever more rigid demands, and fewer people find they can fit into those. Hence, neurodivergent rates might also be rising. There's some thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments.